guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Rich Feldenberg. I'm a pediatric nephrologist and I create videos about science and medicine. Today we're going to view a clip from Grey's Anatomy where they make a dialysis error. So let's go ahead and watch the video.
Dr. Stevens, can I talk to you for a minute?
Go away.
Picked up the labs for you. If you want, I can take care of the dialysis.
I've got this. I don't need a surgical bitch, thanks.
Izzy, it wasn't personal. That stuff, it just comes with the job. I'd expect you to do the same thing to me. Outside of work, you can be friends, but inside, it's a whole different story. At least it was at Mercy.
Well, that isn't how it is here. Here, we don't just think about ourselves. We support one another. We have each other's backs. We throw ourselves in front of buses to save the lives of complete strangers. You will never measure up to the people we've lost. Let's do 140 base sodium, 37 base biocarb, and a 0K bath with an ultrafiltration of 3.5 liters.
So what was going on there? Well, there was this sort of unprofessional interaction between those two physicians. But then Izzy goes into the patient's room, who's a dialysis patient, and prescribes the dialysis bath. So we're not talking about a nice bath that the patient is sitting in, feeling nice and comfortable and relaxed, but the bath that they are referring to is the solution of dialysis fluid that they make up, and it's tailored to the patient. So it's basically made specific for that patient based on their labs. So when she's giving the orders for a sodium of 140, a bicarb of 35, and a 0K, that is describing the composition of the dialysis fluid that she wants for that patient. And the type of dialysis that they are talking about is called hemodialysis. That's where blood is removed from the patient. It circulates through a dialysis machine which has a filter. And the filter is composed of these very thin membranes. On one side of the membrane, the patient's blood is flowing. And on the other side of the membrane, the dialysis fluid is flowing. Things are flowing down their concentration gradient. So if the concentration of potassium in the patient's blood is high, but it's 0 in the dialysis fluid, the potassium is going to have a tendency to move down its concentration to go from the high concentration in the blood to the very, very low concentration in the dialysis fluid. It's just like a ball rolling down a hill. That's the way it's going to move. And the same is with particles in a solution. They'll move down their concentration gradient. Okay, let's see what happens next.
What the hell happened?
Push another two ahead of man now. Give you new chemistries and an EKG.
Get the crash party in here now. Start ventilating her. Toussaint? You gave her Toussaint? What the hell did you do to her?
I didn't do anything. You were the one who was with her last.
Pacemaker.
I already did.
Clear. Clear.
Okay, so there's a lot of action in that scene. They were running to a code. That patient who they prescribed dialysis on was in cardiac arrest. It looked like they were having seizure activity as well, but they were in torsades de pointes, which is a type of ventricular arrhythmia. So that was a life-threatening arrhythmia, and they defibrillated that patient to try to resuscitate them. There's a lot of reasons why that might have happened to a dialysis patient. A lot of patients on dialysis also have comorbid conditions, meaning other diseases that go along with their kidney disease, because kidney disease makes you a lot more likely to develop cardiovascular disease and high blood pressure and other conditions that could result in a myocardial infarction or other arrhythmias. And just being a dialysis patient, they may be prone towards some electrolyte abnormalities like high potassium. That can sometimes affect the rhythm of the heart as well. But hopefully they got our patient back and they'll be okay. Let's see what happens.
She's alive, barely.
She's still gonna get the kidney?
I'm asking the questions right now, Stevens. Dr. Percy here tells me that you were in charge of Sarah's dialysis. Is that true?
Yes.
He also says that you are pretty upset with him.
I don't see what that has to do with anything.
It has to do with the fact that your mental state may have clouded your judgment, may have made you a less competent doctor, may have led you to read the labs wrong or not read them at all. Otherwise, why would you tell the tech to give Sarah a 0K bath when her potassium this morning was 3.4? You sucked all the potassium out of that woman. You stopped her heart. She's alive, but she's not getting her kidney. After 3 years of waiting, somebody else will be getting her kidney. And if we don't find her another one in the next 3 days, she's going to be dead. And you will have killed her.
Okay, so a lot there, of course. So the patient did survive her cardiac arrest, but because of the cardiac arrest, she now missed the opportunity to get that kidney, which she apparently had been offered. And so that could happen if a patient becomes medically unstable. They're not going to get that transplant because they have to be in their most optimal condition to receive the kidney so that they're likely to do well with the kidney. Now, they did mention that Izzy prescribed the 0K bath. They didn't really give any other information to show that that 0K bath caused harm, but it does seem like that's a pretty likely scenario. But you probably would want to have seen some electrolytes during the code to see if the blood potassium was very low, and that may have caused the cardiac arrhythmia. But as we said before, there could have been a lot of other factors that led to that cardiac arrest. But again, giving a 0K bath to a patient that had a pre-dialysis potassium of 3.4 is not really the right thing to do. A potassium of 3.4 is sort of lowish normal, so a 0K would have dropped that below normal for sure. So when would you use a 0K bath? Well, that might be appropriate in certain instances when the potassium level in the blood is very, very high, at a dangerously high and critical level where the high potassium could actually cause a cardiac arrest. And in that situation, you want to bring the potassium down to a safe range relatively quickly, and you can do that by using a 0K bath. You might use a 0K bath, but probably only for a short portion of the dialysis treatment, not even the whole treatment. So maybe for the first hour, you would use a 0K, bring it down relatively quickly, and then go up to a 2 or 3K, something like that, so that you're getting it into a more normal range and not getting it too low. You don't want to overshoot and go from too high to too low. Now, our patient did lose her opportunity to get this kidney, but I don't see any reason why she'll be dead in 3 days if she doesn't get another kidney. So dialysis can keep people alive for a relatively long period of time. And even if she were going to die in 3 days without a kidney, that probably means she's actually no longer a good transplant candidate. A transplant candidate has to be in good enough condition that they're likely to survive the transplant operation, which is a major stressor on their body. And if someone is so ill that they will not even survive the next few days, it's unlikely they would be a good candidate. They would probably be taken off the list until they became more stable and less medically fragile. All right, let's see what happens.
You promised my nieces I was getting this kidney.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but I'm going to make this right. I'm going to get you another kidney.
Okay, so for one thing, you never promise that the patient is going to get that kidney, because that's never a given. So even if a patient gets called for a kidney transplant, they're on the list, and a kidney becomes available that looks like it may be a good match, there's still a lot of things that have to be done before we know for sure that person's going to get that kidney. So there's a cross match that's done to make sure that the patient doesn't have antibodies against the donor's kidneys, and that can be something you wouldn't know until right before the transplant. And in that case, you might say, well, we brought you in for this kidney, but it looks like you're cross match positive. We can't accept this kidney for you. So you'll have to go back home and we'll wait longer, and this kidney will go to someone else, and you'll hopefully get another kidney soon since you just came up for an offer. So you can never guarantee that someone's going to get the kidney. You never promise that to someone. What you can promise is that you're going to do everything you can to get that person ready to receive a kidney, but there's never any guarantee that you'll get any one particular kidney, even if there's an offer available. And sometimes there is human error, that the physician made a mistake, but a lot of times as well there is a system-wide error. So there usually are checks and balances to try to prevent bad outcomes from happening. And even if Izzy ordered the 0K bath, there usually would be some other steps along the way where someone might have caught that before there was a serious issue. So for example, the dialysis nurses are usually very, very familiar with dialysis, because that's the kind of nursing they do all day long. and they would probably question why you're using a 0K bath on a patient with a potassium of 3.4. I think the main system error in this particular episode is that why is the surgeon prescribing the dialysis? The surgeons do not prescribe the dialysis. The dialysis is prescribed by nephrologists. So the nephrologist is the specialist who deals with kidney disease, and they are the specialist trained in dialysis and all the subtleties around dialysis. So any patient that's on a transplant waiting list who's on dialysis will have a nephrologist, possibly more than one even. And in a big teaching hospital like this, there are going to be nephrologists on call all the time. A surgeon would not be writing the orders. But in this situation, the dialysis should have been prescribed by a nephrologist and not a surgeon. The surgeon's just simply not trained to do that. That would be the same as me prescribing chemotherapy for a kid with leukemia. Like, possibly I could do that. I could look up the drugs that would be used, but I don't understand the subtleties, the ins and outs of that. I've never really done it on my own before. It would be really dangerous for me to do that. There'd be no reason for me to do that. There are oncologists that would do that. Now, could a dialysis error occur when a nephrologist wrote the orders? Well, yeah, of course that could happen. It does happen sometimes, but it's much less likely to happen when someone is familiar with doing it day in and day out. And everybody does make mistakes. That's just part of medicine. But the difference between a good doctor and a bad doctor, I think, is that a good doctor admits when they make a mistake and tries to learn from that mistake. Hope to see you guys next time. Thanks for joining. And don't forget to subscribe. Bye, guys.